Hey, what's going on everyone? James Nanobus here and welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I'm going to be making a different type of video, one that is different from all the content that I have posted. Today I am going to be talking about my journey so far as a contestant on this YouTube series called 11 Words of Wisdom. For those that don't know, 11 Words of Wisdom, or EWOW for short, is a YouTube camp created by content creator Kerry Huang on his channel Humany, which is actually a sequel to his series 10 Words of Wisdom on his other channel, Kerry KH. For those that don't know who he is, Kerry Huang is one of the founders of the famous object show Battle for Dream Island, which started the object show community alongside with his brother, Michael Huang. In this game, people from across the internet compete against each other over the course of many rounds with the intent of eliminating each other until there is only one left. Each episode is divided into two parts, Part A and Part B. In every Part A of each episode, all of the responses will be shown randomly and anonymously. Kerry will randomly collect the entries and randomly organize them into many batches of 11 with his coding. Each batch is shown for only one frame, and they are all merged together to make something that I would argue looks like a slot machine. Cool! The keywords on the top right of each batch are used to help Kerry identify what responses you are replying to. Otherwise, it's impossible for him to know what entries you are responding to. Kerry will use a vote-getting Python code to download all comments and calculate the average score based on those comments. In every Part B of each episode, Kerry will announce a new prompt for the contestants to respond to in 11 words or less. The main goal is to essentially stand out in a good way. For contestants to submit their entries, they need to fill them out on Google Forms that are in the descriptions of his videos. You also need to make sure that you use the same email for the whole season, or else your response may not count. This part also shows the leaderboard of the scores for every contestant from best to worst. Now here's a few other things you need to know about this season. Unlike the previous season, each contestant in EWOW gets 3 lives instead of 1. The players that score at the bottom 49% who respond in each episode will lose a life. And once you run out of lives, you will officially be eliminated with no exceptions. This is in response to a lot of people in the previous season being eliminated by unlucky flukes and give players a chance to improve on their mistakes. The top 5% who respond to the prompt will be rewarded with an extra life, which is non-transferable. Now for the twists. The motif of this season is going to be man versus machine. With the rise of AI such as ChatGPT, Kerry decides to add 100 ChatGPT contestants who will compete with the other contestants. They are disguised, so we will not be able to tell who is who. Kerry gave us the mission to defeat the ChatGPT players. If any of the AI contestants make it to the top 100, then they will come out on top over the humans. Any ChatGPT contestants eliminated will be exposed by Kerry so we can keep track of how many that are left. And it doesn't stop there. Kerry, the host, will also be competing alongside us. He will also follow the same rules as all the other contestants. And unlike the ChatGPT contestants, he will not go undercover for the happiness of his contestants if they beat him. With that being said, the series started on December 13th, 2023 as EWOW 0A, with the first entry being,
What did 10 say when he was upgraded to 11?
The deadline for this was December 25th, 2023 at 10 p.m. UTC, or 6 p.m. Eastern Time, where I'm at. This means the contestants would have a total of 12 days to submit their entries. 4 days later, Kerry would post EWOW 0B. But none of this was required as the episode is really more of an FAQ where Kerry responds to most of the common questions that he gets. I'm not going to explain it in this video because I think Kerry does quite a good job with this and I do not want to ruin that video. I, of course, submitted my entry, but I don't want to give it away just yet in order to surprise you all. I'll tell you all my responses when we get to the Part Bs of each episode. EWOW 1A would be released on February 6, 2024, which is the first time this season where people will get to vote on the entries. Let's talk about that for just a second and put that into perspective. The time gap between the Christmas deadline and EWOW 1A is 43 days. The time gap between EWOW 0B and EWOW 1A is 51 days. And the time gap between EWOW 0A and EWOW 1A is 55 days. Given the amount of time that has passed before a new episode came, there's a likelihood that a lot of these contestants forgot that they were a part of this show. Maybe some thought it would be cancelled or something? It also doesn't help that the last season took way too long, which Carrie explains in EWOW 0B. Anyways, episode EWOW 1A starts with Carrie announcing how many people signed up to be on the show. The number was 16,506. Oh my god. And remember, this does not include the 100 ChatGPT bots that are competing alongside with Carrie. This means there are 16,607 total players in this season. Anyways, like the last season, Carrie offers a colored region at the bottom of his videos. This represents the area where a person can pause and vote on the entries that are on their batch. To vote, you must use square brackets. Start with the left square bracket, type the keyword associated with the batch of 11, press space, rank the entries from best to worst with each letter representing an entry, and use the right square bracket to finish your vote. Not only are you able to write other stuff alongside your vote, but you can vote more than once, and comment more than once. But don't spam because the YouTube filter system is not perfect. Voting for EWOW 1A ended on February 12, 2024 at 10 p.m. UTC, or 6 p.m. Eastern Time, where I'm at. Now, you're not required to vote on EWOW Part A episodes, so if you didn't vote, don't worry. Anyways, this gave viewers 6 days to submit their votes. Before the voting, we also got a graph from Carrie to clarify how this episode's results will work. With all 16,607 responding, we have an idea on how many people will gain a life and how many will lose a life. We know that the top 830 will gain a life and the bottom 8,137 will lose a life. In short, the top 830 will have a total of 4 lives, while the bottom 8,137 will only have 2 lives left after EWOW 1B. Speaking of which, EWOW 1B was uploaded on March 30th, 2024. Holy crud! To put it this way, the gap between EWOW 1A and EWOW 1B is 53 days. Meanwhile, the gap between the EWOW 1A deadline and EWOW 1B is 47 days. If this continues, people are gonna forget that they're competing. But to be fair to Carrie, he has a lot on his plate. He has his Carrie KH channel, this series, BFDIA, and Teapot on his Jack and Jellyfy channel, etc. So I can't blame him that much since being a celebrity clearly comes with a lot of work. Anyways, back to EWOW. There were quite a few people who went above the word limit, so there was hope that I would survive. 8,396 people went on to vote 16,937 times in total. Believe it or not, the winner of the first prompt was a 3-way tie with Quackmaster, Hiko, and Downstop. Although their average scores were impressive and they had no standard deviation, Carrie explains that the reason why they did so well was because they had so few votes. The thing is that with 16,607 responses, you're not really likely to get a lot of votes early on. Nonetheless, congrats to them. We learned who got the most votes and the least votes. We also learned that there was a 4-way tie for last place. We also learned that Carrie got an extra life for having a pretty good response. Carrie also shows some histograms, but I'm not going to show them in this video because I think you should check them out yourselves if you want to learn more. Anyways, now I can show you guys my response to the prompt. To refresh your memories, the first prompt was,
What did 10 say when he was upgraded to 11?
my response to that was, with more wisdom comes with more power to take out AI. And my placement was 260th place. Whoa, I thought I was going to lose a life. Apparently the viewers who did respond were very motivated in Carrie's motif in defeating AI. My average score was 87.45%, which was pretty good. My standard deviation was 19.57%, so somewhat controversial. I ended up getting 9 votes in total, and now I'm at 4 lives total. This is a good start. Will I be able to keep up? We'll see. Anyways, the second EWOW prompt was,
6 years ago, we feasted on Tide Pods. Which pods are we feasting on now?
the deadline for this prompt was April 5th, 2024 at 10 p.m. UTC, or 6 p.m. Eastern Time where I'm at. This gave the contestants 6 days to submit their entries. EWOW 2A was released on April 13th, 2024, which is 8 days after the deadline and 14 days, or exactly 2 weeks after EWOW 1B. We learned that only 8,523 contestants responded to the prompt out of the total 16,607 players. We are also told that the 8,084 EWOWers, as Carrie would call them, that did not respond will automatically lose a life, with no exceptions. After Carey gives his incentive to get people to vote at least 10 times, we get to see who is getting extra lives and who has lost lives. As you can see, the top 5% who are able to receive an extra life has shrunk from 830 to 426, meaning that 404 people got screwed from getting an extra life. And because of the number of people that did not respond, a total of 12,261 people, or 73.83% of the players, would lose a life. That is a ton of people, and I'll explain what strategies I think could be used from this later in the video. Voting for this entry ended on April 18th, 2024 at 10 p.m. UTC, or 6 p.m. Eastern Time where I'm at. The next day, April 14th, Carey posted EWOW 2A2 to rectify his mistakes that he discovered in EWOW 2A. The errors had to do with the book sonas and confessionals instead of the actual game, so it didn't affect the game at all. In fact, the video ended up giving another place for viewers to vote on if they had not done so already, which makes sense since the deadline had not yet passed. After that, EWOW 2B was released on April 26, 2024, which is 13 days after EWOW 2A and 12 days after EWOW 2A2, and 8 days after the deadline. And I can see that the leaderboard on how the lives worked has changed a bit. As you can see, the person who will be in 4,397th place has actually, or maybe accidentally, spared by Carey from losing a life. I'm not sure if Carey miscalculated or if something happened, but all I can say is that this person is extremely lucky. There would also be 5 more people that would be eligible to get an extra life. What that means is that the top 431 are eligible to receive an extra life. And the amount of people who will lose a life in total also shrinks from 12,261 to 12,260. With that out of the way, 4,652 voters casted 19,513 votes in EWOW 2. Carey also tells us everyone got at least 5 votes, with some at triple digits. Anyways, to refresh your memories, the prompt for EWOW 2 was
6 years ago, we feasted on Tide Pods. Which pods are we feasting on now?
The winner of that was Chi Chi Knits, a contestant who previously competed on 10 Words of Wisdom, or TWOW. His average score was 95.74%, standard deviation was 10.71%, he had 26 votes and is now at 4 lives. Not gonna lie, I wish I came up with a response like that. Anyways, we also learned that Carey got 65th place and he's at 5 lives. Congrats, Carey. Carey even said that percentage-wise, he did worse, and yet he got a high ranking. I think I might have a theory for why that is. Because there were fewer entries that were submitted, this means that the entries would become less crowded. This gives voters more opportunities to find your entry. It's also important to note that the more people who respond to an entry, the increased likelihood that someone will also downvote the entry due to the increased risk of criticism. Obviously, that's dependent on what the viewers decide is important. But that's to be expected when we're ranking entries from best to worst. After his histograms, we learn how many people have how many lives left. As you can see, a majority of the contestants are down to either 2 lives or only have 1 life left. We also see 65 people with 5 lives. They're going to be a problem for the rest of us. Anyways, my response to the prompt was, we're feasting on pea pods that were made by space pods. And my placement was 4,354th place. Oof! To put that into perspective, 044R was at 4,398th place, meaning they lost a life. If we calculate that, that means I was 44 places away from losing a life. This placement that would have been good last episode was close to the danger zone of this episode. And this is a risk that occurs when many people don't respond. So that is why we need to somehow encourage these people to respond so that we don't get the backlash. But like I said, I'll explain how this can be used as a strategy. Oh yeah, and here were the rest of my results for this episode. And Golden, who ranks 1 above 044R, got very lucky, so congrats to Golden. In short, I really need to do well on this next prompt. And with that, the third EWOW prompt was...
Our first EWOW friends will be eliminated this round. What does the EWOW afterlife look like?
The deadline for this prompt was May 5th, 2024 at 10 p.m. UTC, or 6 p.m. Eastern Time where I'm at. This gives the contestants 9 days to submit their entries. EWOW 2B2 would be released on May 9th, 2024, which is 4 days after the initial deadline and 13 days after EWOW 2B. Carey made this video for the 9,500 plus players who did not submit an entry in time to give them an extension to submit their entries. Now, Carey does mention that this is the only time that he will do something like this. The new deadline was 1 p.m. PDT, or 4 p.m. Eastern Time where I'm at. Carrie also explains that the time window to respond will shrink to 3 to 4 days, similar to the previous season. This is mainly for time's sake, which I get it. Last season took too long and we need to get this done. But at the same time, I feel like I'm gonna get screwed by that at some point. I think there was a point where it took me around like maybe 5 or 6 days to find out and then respond if memory serves me correctly. And trust me, I do check the channel very often. Anyways, Carrie mentions that his Part A episodes will no longer have commentary. They will only show the voting images and book sonas. EWOW 3A would be released on May 12, 2024, which is 3 days after EWOW 2B2 and 7 days or 1 week after EWOW 2B. We learned that 8,062 EWOWers responded to the prompt, which is actually less than half the contestants. As you can see, the top 403 will gain a life, which is a 28-person drop from last time. Anyone placing 4,112th or below will lose a life. This means in total, 12,496 people are going to lose a life, which is an increase from last time. The voting deadline was May 14, 2024 at 11:59 PDT, or 2:59 AM Eastern Time. Carrie also states that the voting window for this episode was 69 hours. Nice. That should be the voting window for every episode. Anyways, EWOW 3B was uploaded on June 9th, 2024, which is 28 days or 4 weeks after EWOW 3A and 26 days after the voting deadline. To refresh your memories, the EWOW prompt was...
Our first EWOW friends will be eliminated this round. What does the EWOW afterlife look like?
After Carrie's talk about Greek mythology, we learned that 3,037 people casted 10,500 votes. This time I'll go back to the histograms in just a bit because they are going to be important for my EWOW 3 response. Quote-unquote Kyle999 ended up winning with an average score of 95.710% with a standard deviation of 14.92%, 24 votes, and now a total of 5 lives. This time I'm going to start with what my response was because I did pretty good compared to last time. Anyways, my response to the prompt was... all of their pages become an obituary for humans to read. And my placement was... 966th place. Let's go! And would you look at that, I ranked behind John F. Kennedy, who used to be a US president. Anyways, I got an average score of 71.13%, which is so much better than last time. My standard deviation was 28.46%. I got 9 votes and I still have 4 lives. I think the reason why I didn't score even higher was because I don't think I answered the question properly. Looking back at my response, it does look as though I was responding about what happened to their bodies after they died, rather than actually telling what the afterlife looks like. Now to talk about one of the histograms. Carrie mentions in one of the histograms that the word obituary had the biggest average score jump boost out of all the words he showed on the histograms. With the average being 79.08% and none of the 5 of us were below 50%, I knew I was going to be safe for another round. Second poorest out of the 5 does suck, but it could have been worse. Anyways, at least I didn't lose a life. The same, unfortunately, cannot be said for Carrie. Carrie ended up getting 7,426th place, which is enough for him to lose a life. Apparently, his response was way too dark, and here were his stats. After that, we learned that 6,286 people have been eliminated, meaning we are at the final 10,321. We also learned that 5,195 people are down to their last life. We also get a list of the 18 people who are now at 6 lives. Carrie then goes on to explain the next prompt, which I won't explain in this video, along with the contestants' season-wide rank compared to their rank for the EWOW episode. And that is where I am at in the journey so far. Now we're at the part that I wanted to explain. Remember, everything that I'm saying for this part of the video has its benefits and risks, some worse than others. So it is important to check your position and think for yourself about what you want to do carefully before you make a risk that does not pan out well. With that being said, let's get into it. As you know, the people who do not respond will automatically lose a life. The fewer people that respond to the prompt, the more people who will be eliminated and the fewer people who will be eligible to receive an extra life. And obviously that's because they are based on the amount of entries that have been turned in. The top 5% of entries turned in will gain an extra life, while the bottom 49% of entries submitted will lose a life. If for some magical reason, though probably won't happen, if all 10,321 people responded to this prompt, here's how many people would gain a life, and here's how many would lose a life. Let's take a look back at the life count distribution. I want to pay close attention to the polarizing ends of that chart. I will not be mentioning the people in the middle for the sake of not only time, but also because it's not a good strategy for those in the middle. Now keep in mind that these are only hypotheticals. Do not use this strategy if you do not want to lose a life, especially those who only have one life left and want to keep playing. Let's start at the people on the left hand side, the people with 1 to 2 lives left. The 5,195 people who are down to 1 life have very little chance of winning this game. They can all choose to make a pact to not respond to the prompt as a way to majorly impact the game. If all of them decide to choose not to respond, here's what the new life chart is going to look like. And keep in mind, that's more than half the contestants. And you can see how big of an impact this would have. Not to mention the people eligible for an extra life would be cut down to half. 7,707 people would lose a life. Now, if the 2,782 people with 2 lives joined them in refusing to respond to the prompt, the results would look like this. As you can see, 7,977 people would automatically lose a life, which is over 75% of the contestants. In total, 9,126 people would lose a life in this scenario, which is a lot. And only 117 people would be eligible for an extra life. But what about the other side? It wouldn't make sense to do this, but I think it can work. It's very likely that some people are going to end up not responding because this has been the trend the whole season. It is what it is. The people with 5 lives or 6 lives can choose not to respond. Yeah, they would lose a life, which is not desirable, but they could get something in return. It is important to understand that the more lives you have, the bigger threat of a player you are. The 18 people who have 6 lives in particular are going to be a big problem for the rest of the season. They can also choose to withhold the prompt and still be alive in order to shrink the amount of people that will be safe. Maybe there's a specific target that they want gone, and refusing the prompt can increase the likelihood of that person losing a life. It also helps that by sacrificing a life, they will also end up lowering their target on their back. The contestants don't always have to rank their own at the very top since the voting images are so randomized that people won't know what entries a person voted for. But what they will have to do is hope that their prompt does well enough to survive another day. With the amount of contestants still in the running, there is probably going to be some people who will go out on a targeting campaign against those that they either hate or those who are the biggest threats to win the game. I'm talking about you, the 18 players with 6 lives. There will be people at some point who will strategically make their voting based on what responses they think belong to the people that they are targeting. This will likely result in people getting caught in the crossfire until the job is done. And people can be very relentless with this. But with the extra lives that they have, the players can use them as a bargaining chip in order to gain favors from other contestants. Having friends in this game is important, and forming alliances with people in danger can be a really good way to get further in the game in the long run. You know how the saying goes, I scratch your back and you scratch mine. And I think alliances can be formed regardless of how many lives people have, which I think would be really interesting. By forming an alliance, all members would be able to boost each other's scores and increase the likelihood of them staying in the game and even getting an extra life. Remember, we are allowed to vote as many times as we want. Alliance members can also be useful for reminding each other of when deadlines for prompts are due in case they are ever too busy. I'm not sure if people have ever talked about forming alliances on this YouTube camp, but I haven't seen videos on it to my knowledge anyways. It would also certainly make the series more entertaining and encourage fans to take sides on who they want to see win the game. Some might root for the Alliance while others might root for the underdogs who are trying to take them out. And last but not least, this could actually make it easier to tell who is real and therefore narrow down the people that are suspected to being AI contestants. But there's always going to be downsides. Alliances are usually formed in a foundation of trust, but that can also be taken advantage of. We need to remember that only one person is going to win this game, so alliances can only take you but so far. Furthermore, the benefits of helping each other in the voting can really only happen if they tell each other their prompts in private. Players will take any opportunity they can to backstab one of their own in case they believe the alliances are detrimental to their game. The alliance can always be exposed to the public, and chances are there will be severe backlash. Any alliance member who betrays may even expose your prompt in order to encourage voters to downvote your entry if they can find it. It's also important to understand that this game is unpredictable and forming alliances at the beginning may not be ideal. Because there's so many people, you may have to wait until later in the game to start forming alliances, as that's when the numbers start dwindling down. Those are just my thoughts, and I'm sure there's more that I'm missing and it's not coming to me. Overall, I would say that I'm a decent competitor. I have not lost any lives. Yet. But I don't think I'm going to win this game because I am not a creative person. Unfortunately, I have not even voted for any entries once. Not even my own, but I might consider doing that soon though. But anyways guys, make sure to strategize and analyze your situation in this game if you are still in before you make any sudden moves in order to give yourselves the best chance possible. This video took way too long to make and I really just want to get this done. I plan on making a series on my progress in EWOW from now until I get eliminated from the competition. Because let's be real, I suck at this game and I am not on track to win this game. I hope you all enjoyed the video and I'll see you later. Peace out.